I want you to imagine something. Imagine hiring a personal assistant, someone who sits beside you at your desk every single day, watching Evie everything you do, every email you read, every document you open, every website you visit, every message you send, every photo you look at, every bank statement you check, every medical result you review, every private conversation you have on your screen. This assistant takes a photograph of your screen every few seconds, quietly, persistently, without stopping. They file every photograph into a massive, searchable archive. They use AI to read the text in every image, to recognize the content, to index it, so that anything you've ever done on your computer can be retrieved with a simple search query. Now imagine this assistant tells you not to worry. They promise the photographs are kept in a locked drawer. They promise only you can access them. They promise the drawer has the best lock money can buy. And now imagine that a security researcher has already picked that lock twice. And the second time, the company that made the lock said it wasn't even a problem. That assistant is Windows Recall. And Microsoft wants you to invite it into your computer and let it watch everything you do. Windows Recall is Microsoft's AI-powered feature built into Windows 11 on Copilot Plus PCs. It takes periodic screenshots of your active screen, processes them through on-device AI to extract text and context, and stores everything in a local encrypted database. The pitch is productivity. You can search your past activity using natural language. You can find that email you read last Tuesday. You can locate that document you were editing 3 days ago. You can retrieve that website you visited but forgot to bookmark. The pitch sounds useful. The reality is a surveillance system built into your operating system that creates the most comprehensive record of your digital life that has ever existed on a personal computer. And the security protecting that record has been broken twice by the same researcher, with Microsoft dismissing the second breach as functioning as designed. Let me walk you through exactly what happened, because the timeline reveals something deeply troubling about how Microsoft approaches the security of your most sensitive data. In mid-2024, when Recall was first announced, cybersecurity researcher Alexander Hagenah discovered that the screenshot database was stored in an unencrypted SQL IT file. Unencrypted. Every screenshot Recall had ever taken, containing everything you'd ever done on your computer, sitting in a ply-in database file that any application, any malware, any person with access to your machine could open and read. Hagenah released a tool, called TotalRecall, that demonstrated the vulnerability by extracting the entire contents of the Recall database in seconds. The backlash was immediate and intense. Security professionals called it a gift to hackers. Privacy advocates called it a nightmare. The Electronic F, Frontier Foundation, and multiple cybersecurity organizations raised alarms. Microsoft pulled Recall back, delayed the launch by over a year. When Recall returned in April 2025, Microsoft had indeed made significant changes. The database was now encrypted with AES 256 Encryptio N. Access required Windows Hello biometric authentication, either facial recognition or a fingerprint. The encryption keys were protected. D within a virtualization-based security enclave, a hardware-level secure environment designed to be tamper-proof. Microsoft positioned these changes as a ground-up security redesign that addressed every concern raised by the initial debacle. And then, in March 2026, Hagenah broke it again, not by cracking the encryption. He acknowledged the encryption was sound, not by bypassing the VBS enclave. He IBED it as rock solid. He found a completely different attack vector by injecting a payload into AIXhost.exe, the Windows 11 component that handles AI features. He could call Recall's legitimate internal interfaces to extract content after it had already been decrypted by the enclave. The vault door was titanium, as he put it, but the data had to come out of the vault to be useful, and that's where he intercepted it. The technique didn't require administrator access. It used standard Windows user-level privileges. It leveraged legitimate system interfaces rather than exploiting a coding error. And it extracted everything. Every screenshot, every indexed piece of text, the complete visual history of everything the user had done on their computer. Hagenah submitted a full disclosure to Microsoft's Security R eSponse Center on March 6, 2026. He included source code and build instructions. Microsoft opened a case, reviewed it for a month, and in April 3rd, closed it. Their response was that the behavior operates within the current documented security design of Recall. Let me make sure you understand what just happened. A security researcher demonstrated that any application running with standard user privileges on your computer can extract the entire contents of your Recall database, every screenshot, every piece of indexed text, every visual reco RD of your digital life. And Microsoft said this is by design, not a vulnerability, not something they plan to fix, working as intended. This means that any piece of malware that gains execution on your computer with your user privileges, not administrator, not system, just to your everyday user account, can silently extract a complete visual record of everything you've done. Your banking sessions, your private team messages, your medical searches, your financial documents, your passwords if they were visible on screen, your intimate conversations, your legal documents, your trade secrets, everything. And the threat isn't theoretical. In April 2026, a separate security researcher, frustrated with Microsoft's handling of vulnerability reports, publicly released a zero-day Windows privilege escalation exploit called BlueHammer on GitHub. This exploit allows a local attacker to escalate from standard user privileges to full system administrator access. Well, cybersecurity expert Will Dorman confirmed the exploit works. It remains unpatched as of now. Connect these two facts. Recall's database can be extracted by any application running with user-level access. A publicly available unpatched exploit can elevate any user-level access to full system control. The combination creates an attack chain where a single piece of malware can gain access to your compute ER, escalate its privileges, and extract every screenshot Recall has ever taken. Your entire digital history, searchable, organized, and ready for exfiltration. This is what security researchers mean when they call Recall a treasure trove for thieves. It's not that Recall creates new ways to spy on you in real time. Keyloggers and screen recorders already exist. It's that Recall creates a pre-built, pre-organized, pre-indexed archive of everything you've ever done, stored locally, waiting for anyone who gains access to scoop it up in a single operation. Without Recall, an attacker who compromises your computer gets whatever is currently on screen and whatever they can find in your files. With Recall's an attacker gets months of visual history covering every application, every website, every document, every conversation. The different CE and intelligence value is staggering. And Microsoft's sensitive information filter, the feature designed to prevent recall from screen, shotting passwords and financial data, has been independently tested and found to be unreliable. Researchers demonstrated that Recall S still captures credit card numbers when the checkout form layout doesn't match expected patterns. It captures passwords when the word paw, S-sword, isn't explicitly visible near the credential field. It captures bank account balances. It captures login credentials when only Tihi username is flagged, but the surrounding context reveals sensitive information. The filter is not a security mechanism, it's a best of Y. Fort heuristic that sometimes catches sensitive data and sometimes doesn't. Building your security on a filter that misses credit card numbers, depending on website layout, is not security, it's a theater. This is the trap. Microsoft has built a feature that creates the most valuable target that has ever existed on a consumer operating system. A complete visual record of the user's digital life, protected by security that has been broken twice and classified as working as designed when it was broken, and they're installing it on every copy, Pilot Plus PC that ships. Now let me explain why calling Recall a feature fundamentally misrepresents what it is. Because Microsoft posit ions Recall alongside productivity tools like Search, Clipboard History, and Timeline, features that help you work faster, features that exist to serve you. But Recall isn't like those features. Recall is in an entirely different category. And understanding what category IT belongs to is essential to understanding why you should avoid it. Every productivity feature ever built operates on the same basic pry and CIPL. You do something, and the feature helps you do it better, faster, or more efficiently. Spellcheck watches what you type, and Hell helps you fix errors. Search indexes your files and helps you find them. Clipboard History remembers what you copied and helps you paste it. Again, these features operate within the scope of the task you're performing. They watch what you're actively doing in one application and provide assistance within that context. Recall breaks this principle fundamentally. Recall doesn't watch what you're doing in one application. It watches everything you do across every application, every website, every document, every message, every screen, continuous, alive, persistently, regardless of what task you're performing. It's not a productivity feature. It's a surveillance system with a productive, and the distinction matters because it determines the threat model. A spell checker that gets compromised reveals your typos. A search index that gets compromised reveals your file names. A clipboard history that gets compromised reveals your recent copies. The blast radius of any individual productivity feature being breached is limited to the scope of that feature's operation. Recall's blast radius is total. A compromised recall database reveals everything. Not everything about one application, not everything about one task, everything about your entire digital life for as far back as the database extends. 3 months of continuous visual surveillance, indexed, searchable, organized by date and time and application and content. It's the difference between an attacker finding a page from your diary and an attacker finding every diary you've ever written with a comprehensive index. No other operating system feature in history has created this kind of consolidated target. And the reason security researchers keep finding ways to extract the data isn't that Microsoft has bad engineers. Microsoft has brilliant engineers. The reason is that the fundamental architecture of recall creates an inherently indefensible target. You cannot build a system that continuously records sensitive data, stores it in a searchable database, and makes it accessible to the user through a local interface without also creating attack surfaces that can be exploited to access that same data. The encryption protects the data at rest, but the data has to be decrypted for the user to search and view it. During that decryption window, during that moment when data moves from the encrypted vault into the user-accessible interface, it becomes vulnerable. That's exactly the seam Hagenah exploited in March 2026. He didn't crack the encryption. He intercepted the data after decryption, using legitimate system interfaces at the exact point where the architecture requires the data to be accessible. This isn't a bug that can be patched. It's a structural tension that exists in every system that encrypts sensitive data and then decrypts it for local use. The more useful you make the data, the more accessible it must be. The more accessible it is, the more attack surfaces exist. Microsoft can add more layers of authentication, more enclave protections, more process isolation. And researchers will find new seams at new decryption boundaries, because the fundamental problem is unsolvable. You cannot simultaneously make data easily searchable and completely secure against local extraction. And this brings me to something that should genuinely alarm anyone considering enabling recall. The people Microsoft trusts least with this data are its own security researchers. When Hagenah submitted his March 2026 disclosure to Microsoft's Security Response Center, the process took a month. Microsoft's conclusion was that the behavior was by design. They did not acknowledge it as a vulnerability. They did not commit to a fix. They closed the case. Meanwhile, other security researchers have publicly described a deterioration in how Microsoft handles vulnerability reports. Will Dorman, a respected cybersecurity expert, stated that Microsoft's Security Response Center used to be excellent to work with, but that Microsoft fired the skilled people, leaving what he described as flowchart followers. The BlueHammer 0 Day that was publicly released in April 2026 was directly attributed by its creator to frustration with how MSRC handled the disclosure process. This is the organization responsible for protecting the most sensitive database that has ever existed on a consumer operating system. An organization that its own collaborators describe as having gutted its skilled staff. An organization that classifies a full database extraction technique as working as intended. An organization whose mishandling of security researchers has led to frustrated hackers publicly releasing unpatched Windows exploits. You're being asked to trust this organization with a visual record of everything you do on your computer. Every password you type, every bank statement you view, every private conversation you have, every medical result you check, every legal document you read, every intimate moment that passes across your screen. Now let me talk about what happens when recall interacts with the real world, not in controlled demonstrations, not in Microsoft's carefully managed preview sessions, in the messy, unpredictable reality of how people actually use computers. You're working from home. You open a video call with a colleague. During the call, you switch to check your personal email. You glance at a message from your doctor with test results. You switch back to the call. Recall captured your doctor's message. Your medical information is now in the recall database, not because you chose to save it, because the system was watching. You're doing your taxes. You have your bank statements open, your W-2 forms displayed, your social security number visible in a document. You spend 40 minutes moving between these documents, cross-referencing numbers, filling in forms. Recall captures dozens of screenshots during this period. Your complete financial identity, social security number, bank account numbers, income figures, all of it now exists in the recall database. The sensitive information filter might catch some of it. Testing shows it won't catch all of it. You're having a private conversation with your partner over a messaging app. The conversation is personal, intimate, intended for two people. Recall screenshots the conversation. The messages are now in a searchable database on your hard drive. If your computer is ever stolen, if malware ever extracts the database, if anyone ever gains access to your user account, you're working on a confidential business document. Trade secrets, merger details, client lists, financial projections. You spend hours on this document across multiple sessions. Recall captures the entire development of the document. Every draft, every revision, every piece of sensitive business information. If your laptop is compromised, an attacker doesn't just get the final document. They get the entire creative and editorial process, potentially including notes and drafts that were deleted from the final version but captured by recalls before deletion. In each of these scenarios, the user didn't choose to create a record. They didn't decide that this particular moment needed to be documented. The system decided for them, automatically, continuously, indiscriminately. And the records it created contain information that the user would never voluntarily store in a searchable database on their hard drive. Microsoft's response to these scenarios is that recall is opt-in, that users can pause it, can exclude specific applications and websites, can delete snapshots. And these controls do exist. They are genuine improvements over the original design, which was opt-out. In 2026, recall is off by default and requires active user consent to enable. But this framing obscures a critical reality. The feature is designed to be most useful when it captures everything. Every application you exclude reduces its utility. Every website you block creates a gap in your searchable history. Every time you pause it, you create a period that recall can't help you retrieve. Microsoft's own marketing emphasizes the comprehensiveness of recall as its primary value proposition. The feature is designed to incentivize maximum surveillance. And the opt-out exclusion controls require you to anticipate every scenario in which sensitive information might appear on your screen. Can you list every website that might display your financial information? Every application that might show a password? Every context in which medical data might be visible? Every moment when a private conversation might appear in a notification overlay while you're working on something else? You can't. Nobody can. The nature of computer use is that sensitive information appears unpredictably in unexpected contexts at unexpected times. A notification pops up with a private message while you're working in an application you haven't excluded. A website displays your credit card number in a format the filter doesn't recognize. A document briefly shows a social security number during a search and replace operation. These edge cases are not edge cases. They are the normal, everyday reality of how people use computers. And every single one of them represents a moment where recall captures something it shouldn't, something you didn't intend to record, something that now exists in a database that has been proven extractable by a standard user-level application. The feature requires perfection from a filter that independent testing has shown is imperfect. It requires comprehensive foresight from users who cannot predict when sensitive data will appear on their screens. And it creates a catastrophic single point of failure that consolidates months of sensitive data into one extractable archive. This is not a feature you can use safely by being careful. The architecture makes careful use insufficient. The only safe configuration for recall is off. Now I need to talk about the part of this story that goes beyond recall itself, because recall isn't an isolated feature. It's a piece of a larger architecture that Microsoft is building. And understanding that architecture is the difference between treating recall as a single bad decision and recognizing it as the leading edge of a fundamental transformation in what your operating system is designed to do. Microsoft's vision for Windows, stated explicitly in their investors' presentations, developer conferences, and product roadmaps, is AI integration at every layer of the operating system. Copilot isn't an application that sits on top of Windows. It's being woven into the fabric of Windows itself, into the File Explorer, into the Settings panel, into the taskbar, into the Start menu, into the notification system, into Office applications, into the browser, into the shell. Recall is the data layer that feeds this integration. The AI that Microsoft is building into Windows needs training data. It needs context. It needs to understand what you do, how you work, what you look at, what you search for, what documents you create, what websites you visit, what patterns define your digital life. Recall provides all of this. Every screenshot is a training sample. Every indexed piece of text is context. Every timestamped record of your activity is a behavioral data point that makes the AI more capable of predicting, suggesting, and anticipating your needs. Microsoft describes this as personalization, and in a narrow technical sense, it is. An AI that has a photographic record of everything you've done on your computer can give you better suggestions than one that doesn't. It can find files faster. It can anticipate what you're looking for. It can surface relevant information before you ask for it. The productivity gains are real within the specific context of an AI that has comprehensive access to your behavior. But personalization and surveillance are the same mechanism viewed from different angles. Now, the data collection is identical. The storage is identical. The processing is identical. The only difference is framing. Like when Microsoft uses the data to show you a suggestion, they call it personalization. When an attacker uses the same data to steal your identity, they call it a breach. But the data that enables both outcomes is the same data collected by the same system, stored in the same database. And this is where the trajectory becomes clear. Recall today captures screenshots. Tomorrow, what else? Microsoft has already demonstrated the technical capability to capture and process text from screenshots. The next logical step is real-time activity analysis, not just capturing what's on screen, but understanding the context of what you're doing as you do it. The step after that is predictive modeling, using historical patterns to anticipate your future actions. The step after that is intervention, proactively modifying your workflow based on what the AI thinks you should do next. Each step requires more data. Each step requires more comprehensive surveillance. Each step creates a more valuable database for attackers to target. And each step moves further from the original premise of a personal computer, a machine that you control, that does what you tell it, that serves your purposes exclusively, towards something fundamentally different. A machine that watches you, learns from you, predicts you, and eventually steers you. This trajectory isn't speculation. It's Microsoft's stated product strategy. Copilot is designed to be an ever-present AI companion embedded in every aspect of your computing experience, and an ever-present AI companion requires ever-present data collection to function. Recall is the beginning of that data collection, not the end. And here's the part that should make everyone uncomfortable, regardless of how they feel about AI and productivity. The database that Recall creates doesn't just serve you. It serves Microsoft's broader AI ambitions. Microsoft states that Recall processes data locally and doesn't send screenshots to the cloud. As of 2026, this appears to be true. The processing happens on device using the neural processing unit in Copilot Plus PCs. The database is stored locally. No screenshots are transmitted to Microsoft's servers, but Microsoft's privacy policies leave room for evolution. The data that Recall collects could, in future versions, be used to improve Microsoft's AI models. The local processing architecture could be augmented with cloud-based processing for more complex queries. The opt-in consent you grant today could be expanded through updated terms of service that you accept without reading because they appear during a routine Windows update. This isn't paranoia. This is the documented pattern of how Microsoft has expanded data collection in Windows over the last decade. Windows 10's telemetry started minimal and expanded with every update. OneDrive's integration started optional and became progressively more aggressive. Copilot's presence started as a sidebar widget and is being embedded into every system component. The pattern is consistent. Start small, normalize the presence, expand the scope. Each step individually justifiable, each step collectively moving toward comprehensive data access. And the legal framework provides almost no protection. Microsoft's terms of service give the company broad latitude to modify features, update privacy policies, and change data handling practices. When you enable Recall, you're not making a permanent agreement with a fixed set of terms. You're entering an ongoing relationship where Microsoft can change the rules at any time, with your continued use of the feature constituting acceptance of the new terms. You are trusting that Microsoft will never change the local-only processing model. You are trusting that screenshots will never be used for model training. You are trusting that the database will never be accessible to cloud-based services. You are trusting that future terms of service will never expand what Microsoft can do with Recall data. And you are making this trust decision about the most comprehensive record of your digital life that has ever existed on a personal computer. That is an extraordinary amount of trust to place in a company that has repeatedly demonstrated willingness to expand data collection over user objections. Now let me tell you what the alternative looks like, because the solution to Recall isn't just disabling it, it's understanding why the alternative doesn't need it. On Linux, the concept of Recall doesn't exist, not because Linux developers couldn't build it, because the development model has no incentive to build it. Nobody in the Linux ecosystem benefits from creating a comprehensive surveillance archive of your activity. There are no AI products to feed. There are no personalization models to train. There are no investor presentations where comprehensive user data collection is positioned as a competitive advantage. When you want to find a file on Linux, you use a file search tool that looks at your files. Not at screenshots of your files, not at AI-processed records of when you looked at your files, at the actual files in the actual directories where you actually saved them. The search is fast, accurate, and doesn't require a surveillance infrastructure to operate. When you want to remember what you're working on, you look at your recent files list. Every file manager, every application, every desktop environment maintains a recent files list. It tells you what documents you opened and when. It doesn't photograph your screen every few seconds. It records the file names and access times, the minimum information necessary to help you find what you need. When you want to retrieve something you saw on a website, you check your browser history. Firefox and every other browser maintains a searchable history of the pages you visited. You can search by title, by URL, by date. The history is stored in the browser, not in a system-wide surveillance database, and you can clear it anytime without affecting any other aspect of your system. These are simple tools that solve the same productivity problems Recall claims to solve without creating a searchable visual archive of your entire digital life. They work by recording minimal, specific data about your actions, rather than comprehensive visual surveillance of everything on your screen. They're effective because they solve actual user problems. And they're safe because the data they create is narrowly scoped and doesn't represent a catastrophic single point of failure if compromised. The difference between the Linux approach and the recall approach reveals something fundamental about the motivations behind each system. Linux solves productivity problems with the minimum necessary data. Recall solves productivity problems with the maximum possible data. The Linux approach minimizes risk while providing utility. The recall approach maximizes risk while providing utility. And the only reason to prefer maximum data collection over minimum data collection is if the data itself, not the productivity. So here's what I want you to do right now, today. If you have a Copilot Plus PC, check whether recall is enabled. Go to Settings, then Privacy and Security, then Recall and Snapshots. If the Save Snapshots toggle is on, turn it off, then go to the existing snapshots and delete them. Delete everything. Every screenshot recall has taken of your activity, delete it. Then go to Windows Features. Search for Turn Windows Features on or off in the Start menu. Find recall in the list, uncheck it. Remove it from your system entirely. Not disabled, removed. Because a disabled feature can be re-enabled by a future update. A removed feature requires reinstallation. If recall isn't currently on your system because you don't have a Copilot Plus PC, understand that Microsoft's trajectory is toward making AI features standard across all Windows 11 devices. The NPU requirement limits recall today. As AI processing becomes more efficient, and as older NPUs become capable enough, the hardware barrier will lower. Recall, or something like it, will eventually be available on a much wider range of machines. The time to establish your boundaries with this technology is now, before it arrives on your hardware. Before a Windows update quietly enables it. Before your digital life is archived in a database that security researchers have proven can be extracted. Microsoft built Recall to create a photographic memory of everything you do on your computer. They positioned it as a productivity miracle. Security researchers have demonstrated twice that the database it creates can be extracted by standard user-level applications. Microsoft classified the second extraction as working as intended. The sensitive information filter has been independently shown to miss credit card numbers, passwords, bank balances, and personal identification data depending on layout and context. This is not a feature. It is a liability. A searchable, extractable, comprehensive liability that consolidates months of your most sensitive activity into a single target that has been proven vulnerable and that Microsoft has declined to fully secure. You wouldn't install a security camera in your bedroom and save the footage to an unlocked hard drive because a company told you it would. Help you find your keys faster. Recall is that camera. Your screen is that bedroom. And the database, despite the encryption, despite the biometrics, despite the VBS enclaves, has been opened by a researcher using a technique that Microsoft says is by design. Avoid recall. Disable it. Remove it. Delete the data. And understand that the company offering you a photographic memory of your digital life is the same company that classified the ability to steal that memory as a feature, not a flaw. Your computer should work for you. It ain't should not build a searchable archive of your life for the next attacker who finds a way in. And they will find a way in. They always do.